A very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for joining our Homeopathy 24/7 podcast. We are going to be speaking to an array of international guests who will share their knowledge and experiences of homeopathy with you. We will discuss all types of subjects such as remedies, symptoms, and stories of health. No matter where you are with your homeopathic journey, we aim to inspire you on your quest to natural health and living. The podcast is brought to you by Mary Greensmith, the founder of Homeopathy 24/7, which is a global platform connecting you with a homeopath wherever you are in the world, 24 hours a day. So let's get started with today's chat. Please welcome Mary Greensmith.
Hello, welcome everybody. So lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I am so excited to welcome Pailin Brzeski. Pailin is a homeopath in London and specialises in trauma and toxins and all sorts of things like that. Welcome, Pailin. Lovely to see you.
Nice to see you, Mary.
It's so lovely to be able to get together with homeopaths and just talk about the different aspects of homeopathy. And I know that you help people around the world with really complex conditions. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I sort of came to focusing on the very broad topic of complex conditions because I just kept seeing these people increasingly in my clinic. And really, it's the people who have been through the system, been through all modalities of treatment, and just don't know what to do next. Um, so yeah, that's really my general foundation of my practice, really, the bulk of my clients that I see. And, to navigate my way through a complex case where really people have what I often refer to as a scroll's worth of diagnostic labels, I mean, it's extraordinary. How do you make sense of that? Where do you start? And so, really, what I could distill things down to with the three basic, what I call pivot points. And that really is that whatever the diagnostic labels, the results, they are the result of people really being poisoned, traumatized, or deficient. And in a complex case, it will be all three. So really, that was how I came to sort of navigating, the treatment process, and then going by results. So yeah, and then it's just accumulated from there.
Okay, so interesting, so interesting. And I agree with you absolutely totally that this poisoning and trauma, um, and of course trauma is effectively poisoning the body, isn't it? Knocking it off balance as well. So for you to bring all those three together. So tell me a little bit about your training and the influences that you've had that help you bring together different modalities and ways of helping people.
Yeah, so I trained at the College of Homeopathic Education in London. I did a degree at the time through, so it was affiliated with Middlesex University. And it was amazing because I got to see very different practitioners, one after the other. And, we'll be familiar in homeopathy. There are a lot of different opinions and views and preferences. And for me, it was really liberating and exciting. And I just felt it was a complete dynamic space to see what you resonate with and what you needed. And for me, obviously, in this defining myself in terms of traumas, toxins, and deficiencies, I was really drawn to the people that spoke to that type of case taking. So in my first year at college, Colin Griffith, a really incredible English homeopath, just completely changed my whole course and trajectory from that very first year. And I really see him as a mentor and really been working closely with his new materia medica. He's very practical. I'm drawn to very practical prescribers. But the practicality in Colin's work has a real emphasis on I try to think of I'm trying to think of the appropriate word, but maybe the more esoteric side of prescribing, or the spiritual side of prescribing, where we're looking really at ancestral wounds and traumas and family patterning that goes beyond the person's state. So really, ultimately, it's about understanding what is blocking this person.
Yeah.
I don't see myself as someone that is going to heal you. My role is to really assess where is this individual blocked, because you are going to heal yourself. That is the only way this can work from my perspective. So having the tools in terms of these really incredible trauma remedies, and I would say remedies for our times, has been completely fundamental in my practice. On the other side, although Ton Janssen, who is a Dutch homeopath, who's I've also been really inspired by, also obviously trauma is not separate from any of our practices. What really drew me to his style of prescribing, the human chemistry integrated therapy method, is the incredible understanding of the technicalities of poisons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and medications as poisons and heavy metals as poisons and so forth. So these have been really I feel like this has really given me the infrastructure for dealing with these complex cases. And of course, deficiencies are absolutely fundamental. And really, we go back to homeopathy 101 with this. With tissue salts, cell salts are absolutely, and even still, I mean, practice over a decade now. The tissue salts are just, I've come back to a real connection to tissue salts. So my prescribing generally, not always, is really the opposite of the classical prescribing. I don't see it as separate, because really we're wanting to build a person, build the scaffolding, I always refer it to getting to that place of single remedy prescribing. But there are many, many threads in the way I prescribe. So yeah, the kind of influence is really many homeopaths have influenced me, but Colin and Ton have really been my base.
Yes, yes, I can absolutely understand it. And for me, Colin was one of my authors of one of my favorite books on miasm. So going right back to taking
Same.
absolutely everything into consideration is just amazing. But as you said, in this day and age, we have got so many toxins and so many poisons. Um, and our bodies are reacting differently. And you wake up in the night suddenly and think, oh my goodness, maybe it's not just the milk, but what actually happens when they're pasteurizing milk? Well, what has changed in the last 30 years? Every process of food production has changed in the last 30 years. So how is that actually affecting our bodies? It's not just a coincidence that suddenly a lot more of us are not able to have certain foods, and our actually range of the foods that make us feel good is becoming narrower and narrower because of what everybody's doing to everything, and what's in the environment, and what's in our water, and what's in our medicines, as you say, vaccinations, everything else. So you're seeing this all of the time. So when do people come to you? At what stage? Have they tried everything else? Or is there really not a lot of other medicines that can help?
Yeah, I see people with all sorts of experiences. People who have a long experience with homeopathy and have not been able to move forward.
Mm.
People who've tried many different types of alternative therapies, people who've been really invested in the conventional medicine system process. So all sorts really, but a lot of the times, as I said, it's people who've really come to the end of their tether and in a state of hopelessness, actually. I mean, some very, very serious conditions. At the end of the day, again, we just do our best as practitioners and we take the case. I think going back to Ton's influence, it's the forensic attention to detail that has really been important in my practice. Just like you said, is it just, oh, stop dairy? Well, hang on a sec. There's a process that precedes the dairy. I would also say that my other really big inspiration is the new biology healing movement. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's been established by a group of doctors and scientists who are disillusioned with the conventional medical paradigms. Um, the kind of the assumptions that things are based on, and misconceptions, germ theory, contagion theory, things like this. And for me, although it's not directly homeopathic, it is completely consolidated my instincts into the scientific method, actually. So I have that side of my practice, but yeah, it's really helped me refine and feel confidence in being able to sort of decipher and assess, because again, it's all about what's blocking. And then we have our amazing homeopathic tools to come in with glyphosate, for example, with these very specific kind of remedies that can meet that. But it's never ever separate to the trauma component, the ancestral patterning, the miasmatic component. And that book that you're referring to of Collins literally was my Desert Island Disc, Saving from the Waves book. I loved the section on miasms, just completely changed my whole way of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. But tell me a little bit more about ancestral trauma, because this is when we've got cases that should have resolved with the well-indicated remedies, and just we cannot just get to the crunch of it. It just keeps coming back. And I often think, this isn't your stuff. This is something else. So tell me a little bit more about ancestral trauma.
Yeah, the again, Colin has been just so insightful and informative for me here, because in homeopathy we're looking at the simimulum. What is that homeopathic frequency point of matching remedy state? And when we have a situation where someone doesn't respond, and we're looking at the context of their story, and this is about a person's story, and the familial patterning is part of that story, it's, is the simimulum actually in that person, or do we have a simimulum that's in between themselves as their own being and the family line? And when we start having this maverick understanding and perspective, it opens a whole nother world of where we direct our prescribing. So, I mean, cases where, for example, and I see this a lot, and it will be very unique to the person's situation, where a narcissistic mother, has been instructive in the way the person has lived their lives and their pathology, which has brought them in to see me. And when I see it's appropriate, we've got to get our timing right, the potency right, the remedy right. I have seen really extraordinary things where I've used that kind of perspective in terms of that ancestral patterning to prescribe not for that person, but for the dynamic and energy between. Whether it's the mother, I mean, sometimes it's specific, sometimes it's not. People don't come in generally, although some do, and say, I have ancestral trauma.
Oh,
You just don't. How do you know that? And my role is not to say you have ancestral trauma. We are homeopaths, and so really, it's the unseen thread. But we can triangulate with the information we have, their presentation, what they respond to, what they don't respond to, and that's really the process how I come to it. But it's so dependent from person to person, and really, that in terms of these really complex cases, the blocking can be grafted on block and block and block. So, it really, I say to people, you have to give this process time, and you have to trust. It's about trust. It's about trusting me. It's about trusting yourself. It's about trusting the process. So yeah, it's, people need to decide how they engage with their own journey.
yes, of course. It's just fascinating to learn what all of the different threads of bringing health around, and just helping people on that journey. Just tell me a little bit about poisons. Have you got any specific cases or anything you can give me an example of?
Yeah, the first case that comes to my mind, there's a really beautiful, I mean, v elegant lady that I treat. And she came to me just after a huge process of trauma where she thought she was dying. I mean, she had the physical symptoms of dying, collapsing, unable to breathe, waking at night, suddenly in panic and terror, physical breakdown of symptoms. She had pre-existing, health situation in any case, everything exacerbated, continual illnesses, acutes, and just in a state of absolute terror. And this is a lady in her late 20s. And then fortunately for her, it was found out that her car had actually been leaking carbon monoxide. And every time she got on her journey to work, she was being poisoned I mean, they don't know how long, but probably for almost a year. So actually, for what she thought was given all these diagnostic labels, it's a really beautiful example of this is wrong with you now, this is wrong with you, you're just anxious, all these different perspectives. She was actually being poisoned, and her body's symptoms, as disease symptoms always are, were her system saying, help me, I'm trying to clear this as best as I can. Because always I think of Florence Nightingale's observations that all disease and pathological processes are reparative. They're all about the body going into an attempt of repair
Mm,
for something that has preceded it. In her case, something that was ongoing.
yes.
That was about poisoning or a deficiency or both. So if we get poisoned by carbon monoxide, the resource it takes to try and eliminate, to buffer our system and so forth, makes us deficient just purely from that experience. Um, so I mean, so fortunate for her that she was able to do this. But the impact on her life, her confidence, the trust in her body, her ability to heal. I mean, it had absolutely collapsed. So yeah, the treatment was really incredible. Now there's a lot of pre-existing stuff that, health stuff that we're now having to work on. But in terms of the layer of trauma and just the experience, and then realize all of, the what ifs as well, really in a state of PTSD. And it was just incredible to see her response to the remedies in terms of that layer and then clearing to get to that more complex, deeply rooted work. So that's a good example, I think.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And just to think that if she hadn't got homeopathy, what else has she got? You know, homeopathy is just such an amazing form of medicine that brings together observation and learning about self, um, along with a catalyst that helps the body heal. And when you think of the fact that, yes, we can look at previous things that have happened, we can look at inherited susceptibilities, we can look at poisons that even ongoing poisons, we call them, maintaining causes, and what can we do about that? And the amazing thing is that homeopathy, even if you're still on medications that are giving you side effects, we can still help you. It's just, isn't it incredible that we've got so much, so many
Absolutely.
tools?
Absolutely. And you know what I really find as so unique and fantastic about homeopathy when it comes to trauma is that people often don't know they're traumatized.
Mhm.
That's the nature of trauma. That's the
Yeah.
that's the self-healing strategy to protect us so that we survive. It's survival. And so the other thing as well is we don't need to pick and poke and overanalyze. And really, from my observations, I've seen the people that do that. And I'm not saying that doesn't have a place, but really, because we're whole body people, we're looking at things holistically. It takes it out of their body and they go, yeah, well, that's dealt with.
Yeah.
But I've
Yeah.
just got cancer now. I've got a tumor now. I've got this. It's like, but I dealt with that.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a different perspective and we have the tools to be able to work with the system, never overriding the system. That's not how we work. But yeah, it's incredibly, again, practical is my sort of foundation for this. Um, it's really exciting, and we can treat animals, we can treat babies, we can treat anybody. And really, I say to everyone, my absolute focus, it has to be about results. Has to be. I mean, why otherwise? It's a nice thing to do, sure, but I want to see results. Now, sometimes the results can take longer,
Yes.
and sometimes they're incredibly quick. But also, what's been really interesting, and I've got no answer for this at the moment in any case, but I will see a new patient with this extreme amount of diagnostic labels, Lyme's disease, MCAS, like I mean, just incredible. And they have teams of specialists, some of them. They're
Yes.
going to different departments, getting tests for all these different things. And what's really the most exciting thing, and no doubt you'll find this in the same way, is when people just don't identify with those disease labels anymore.
Mm.
Instead of my lines, it's
Yeah,
like, oh, I just totally, I'm not even, it's just nothing, just I've forgotten about that.
that's
And
right.
that is really exciting because we're in a world where we're taught that things are linear and that you can only stay as bad as you are or slowly get worse, but hopefully not too badly. And we can see really what we've been told are fixed conditions improving in really extreme states. So yeah, it is amazing.
It's just so lovely to hear um the fact that we are talking to people, we're working with people, we're helping people, and we are seeing such dramatic changes in people's lives from just a little white pill. It's but it's more than that, isn't it? We know that we've got an energy medicine. We know that we're actually helping, empowering people to get better quite often, and just turning on that a different way, a different perspective, a practical way of helping their own bodies.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, sometimes, there are hard days, don't get me wrong. And I
Yeah.
think, I always think, why did I become a florist or a geologist or, why am I doing this? But then, it's work, it's complex, it's a different case, a different person. Sometimes there are blocks and there's all sorts of things that go on. But then, you see so many of these amazing steps forward that it's incredibly inspiring. It inspires me because really the kind of core human question I for me in any case is what is the nature of suffering and
Mm.
what can we do about it? And homeopathy is just this incredible means of being able to do this. And we're so lucky as practitioners, we're not um, acupuncturists or so forth that have to be physically with the person. We can see anyone anywhere. We can be working from an island and be seeing people around the whole world. So we are really, we're really lucky.
I know, I know. Aren't we pleased to have chosen homeopathy to go and study? And quite often I say, when people, are thinking, yeah, I want to learn more about this. And I say, well, okay, just to know what you're going into, because you will never stop learning with homeopathy. We're always finding out different ways of helping people, and it just leads to long time, lifelong learning, really, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I read something, and again, I'm going back to just going back to tissue salts. I'm
Yes.
absolutely just back to tissue salts. We sort of think, oh, they're just kind of I learned that in first year, that's done. And I've just this absolute excitement going back to these types of remedies, so there's all different ways and just different ways constantly evolving. I mean, the other big part of and this is sort of an exciting project for me that I'm expanding this year in terms of my work is food. Food is a really big, I'm a real foodie. I'm really passionate about food. Another sort of influence with the new biology movement, but also from a long period of time is Weston A. Price. And the nourishing traditions. My mother is Thai. I'm half Asian, and I absolutely love Asian food. So I'm going to be working on developing, how do we look at the nourishing traditions of Asian foods,
Mm.
and you bring these into, because obviously food is medicine. We know that today's food makes tomorrow's cells. And if we're looking at deficiencies, I really want to focus on how can we what the metabolic fire to extract that, so with the remedies, the scaffolding, the deficiencies that are causing us to have impeded metabolic fire. If we deal with that, and then we have this amazing food that's actually joyful, delicious to eat. So yeah, that's what I'm going to expand on as well. It's a big sort of part of my life anyway. So
That's really exciting, Pailin. I'm really excited to learn more about that. But perhaps that's time for another podcast. We can get better and talk about nourishing food, because obviously that is something that is really close to my heart. Just coming, from a farming background or self-sufficiency background, and just wanting to know actually what's going on my plate, and I don't want to know what's happening out there in the supermarkets and everything else. So we'll have that as a separate conversation perhaps one day, if you'd be good enough to come back. But let me just ask you, just for finishing, because where are we going with our environment and the poisons in our world? What can we be doing to maintain better health or become more resilient to what's happening around us? Is there anything that we can be doing?
the absolute revelation to me has been how pivotal fear is.
Okay.
Fear is more palpable, it is as palpable as any toxin, as I mean, it's traumatizing in and of itself. But I can really see how much fear and fear of everything. I mean, I absolutely know that there is an onslaught of toxins, radiation, EMFs, all of this. I live in the center of London, but and it's not about ignoring those things and lightening those things, but it's also the balance of not living in fear and feeling that everything is out to, to attack me and I'm a sitting duck. Yeah, just waiting for something to develop. We can only but focus on ourselves.
Yeah.
And really, it's going back to basic things, nourishing food,
Yeah.
wonderful remedies that are well prescribed, grounding, fresh air, sunlight. I'm really, we are dealing in structured water medicine. So, water is absolutely key. And like in one day, my dream is to be in my own water source, and just to have a lovely spring. So these types of things, but we do the best. I'm in central London. I do the best I can. And just having an authentic attitude, not to glaze over my feelings of concerns and worries, but I really do feel that fear is really the biggest issue. And then we have to make sensible decisions and look after ourselves. But yeah, it's just being in touch with the rhythm of the day. Homeopathy is very rhythmic. We give rhythm to our prescribing, and that is very profound. That's not separate to the actual substances that we're choosing to provide a person. So yeah, that's my sort of first response to that.
Yeah, no, and that is such a fantastic answer, because actually, if we think about the people who come to us, and often children as well as adults, fear is where the energy is quite often. And I know that if we can just help people be more confident in themselves, then that leads to overall improvement in health, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, it's so lovely talking to you, Pailin. Please, let's do this again sometime.
Thank you, Mary. I'd love to talk again.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pailin, for going through and talking with us today about homeopathy and everything that you do with healing trauma and toxins. It's been really, really lovely talking to you. Now, next week, it'll be our 100th podcast. So we're just going to have a review of everything Homeopathy 24/7 has been doing for the last few years. We've had 2 years of podcasts now, and we're really going great guns. We have got such a fabulous team of homeopaths who are available to help you either live for acute consultations or in groups if you've got particular questions about learning how to use use homeopathy. And so let's just be talking about what Homeopathy 24/7 has been up to, and perhaps revisiting some of those podcasts that we've done over the last couple of years. I look forward to speaking with you next week. Take care. I do hope you've enjoyed these episodes, and I do hope you can subscribe to our channels. Now, there are various ways for you to listen to our podcast or watch it on video on YouTube. So whether it's iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, please do subscribe and please do leave us a review. If you leave us a review on these platforms, then more people will see our podcast. We just want more people to share the joy of homeopathy. It's a choice that everybody should know about. Please do everything you can to help us help more people.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to listening to our next one. Please don't forget to follow our podcast on your chosen channel, and please do leave us a review so we can continue to share homeopathy with as many people as possible. If you do have any questions, please do reach out to us on any of our social platforms mentioned in the show notes. We at Homeopathy 24/7 hope to empower you on your natural health journey.